Assalamu alaikum and welcome back, and thank you for joining Shaded's Ramadan series where we're extracting beautiful lessons, life lessons from Surah Yusuf alayhi salam. And we're continuing on with lesson number 13, which is God's plan. When it comes to understanding the great wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His decision to test us in the way that He does in this life, we only have room to speculate. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, do the people think that they will say they believe and they will be left alone without being put to the test? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created this world to test us, as we know that this is the home of trials. And sometimes we ask, well, what is He putting to the test? He's putting to the test our faith and our character. He's putting to the test our gratitude and our truthfulness and our trustworthiness. But subhanAllah, when we look at the aspect of how He tests us through hardships and through eases, through following the obligations and staying away from the prohibitions, He is doing a means of filtrating us. He is actually seeing and clearly seeing, and He knows everything, but He wants us to see it clearly too. This is where in these trials we will differentiate who believes and who doesn't believe. So who's sincere and who's insincere, who is honest and who is dishonest, who is giving and who is stingy, who is humble and who is arrogant. Subhanallah, these tests are meant to filtrate us, purify us, and elevate our ranks. And there's another aspect that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also explains, that one of the reasons for creating life and death is to test which of you is best in deeds. So we are definitely in a challenge of always bettering ourselves and growing in our spirituality, proving to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we love Him the most. So we don't look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't look at our faces, nor does He look at how much wealth we have or what degrees we attain. He looks at those and He tests those to see who is best in their deeds. Now, once we establish that trials are a part of life and a form of our daily lives, we can only then try to begin understanding some of the wisdoms behind this. When it goes without saying that we cannot always know the reason and see the bigger picture, as this knowledge is possessed by Allah and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. Now, there are times we experience hardships, and in the midst of the hardship we're going crazy, but later on, months later, years later, we might see doses of wisdom, possible wisdoms, why it happened, but there's only Allah that knows exactly why it occurred. Now, young Yusuf alayhi salam was certainly in a confused state while being trapped in the hidden depths of the well, and he could not quite understand what he did to deserve such a separation like this. But what he didn't know was that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had a plan in place for him, and that his patience and struggle would not go unnoticed. Simultaneously, Allah had already made His move. He already put His plan into action and had a caravan that had originally departed from Asham, Syria, was making its way to Egypt, where Yusuf alayhi salam was destined to be in the future. This group of travelers had no intention of stopping off by this well that Yusuf was in, but however, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the caravan lose its way and stop right in front of the well, exactly where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted them to be. The stranded travelers decided that since they were lost, it would be a good time for them to rest and to revitalize themselves. So they sent one of their own to fetch water from the well. And yet, to the surprise of this individual, he extracted a boy. He screamed, "Good news! Here's a boy!" as he came across a handsome young child who was clearly distressed. It was a bittersweet moment for Yusuf alayhi salam, as he did get out of one trial. He got out of the depths of a well, but he wasn't sure what he was going to expect from these strangers. What are these strangers going to do with him? So he was at the mercy of these complete strangers. They immediately decided to hide him and to sell him as a slave, And the most suitable place for them to do this was in Egypt. Egypt was known for the hustle and bustle of the marketplace, and that's where they wanted to sell him as a slave. And Yusuf alayhi salam was faced with yet another trial. So yes, he was in a trial of being put in the well by his brothers, but when he got out of the well, he was put through another trial as being sold as a slave. Yet he was better equipped for this now that God has salvaged him from the darkness of the well. Now, life is such that nothing is a coincidence. I want us to reflect on our life and know that nothing is just no meaning. Everything has a meaning to it. Nothing really is a coincidence. In fact, we can be the victims of our own decisions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, though, has already factored in what is best for us through His mercy and through His love. There was no way that anyone from Yusuf alayhi salam's family would rescue him from this atmosphere. And so these strangers, these travelers, they pretty much took him, sent to collect, and sold him as a slave. But Yusuf alayhi salam was going exactly where he needed to be. The final destination was not the well. Rather, this was just a means to the end and a stopover to strengthen Yusuf alayhi salam even more. The plan all along was for Yusuf alayhi salam to actually settle in Egypt and to get comfortable in this land that one day he will have authority over. And this was just one of the pieces of the puzzle to set all of his story into motion. So we should constantly be reminded of the verse where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Say, nothing will ever befall us except what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has destined for us. He is our protector. So in Allah let the believers put their trust." Everything we are struck with in life is a part of a divine decree. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a plan for us, and His plan will get executed. There is nothing that's meant to pass us by that's for us, and there's nothing that comes and touches us that was not meant to touch us. So know the fact that everything that happens to us is through divine decree. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave it permission to happen or not to happen. Now the word musibah itself, commonly known as and viewed as calamity, it actually shares its roots with the word isaba, which gives the meaning of an arrow hitting its target. Now what is then clear is that we were the intended targets of any musibah which afflicted us in our lives, that it was not meant to pass us by. Any difficulty that we face or any hardship that we face, we have to understand that this was meant for us through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's plan. We were supposed to go through it and grow from it. We are supposed to go through it and grow from it. So just like the one who is struck by an arrow and goes through a recovery process, we too must heal and become stronger through all of our wounds before we can continue. So the point is not to overcry or grieve or be anxious about a hardship that's facing us. We should handle it with beautiful patience. We should trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and persevere through it. And this was not something that we could have simply avoided. This is something that it's already written for us. So whether it comes in a form of a delay, a random stranger, or unpresented opportunity or situation, all these events can be seen as tiny pixels which form a bigger picture. As verse 21 concludes, Allah always prevails in His purpose, though most people do not realize it. So let us take a lesson about God's plan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a plan, and His plan will get executed. So know whatever you're going through, Allah won't give you more than you can handle. And He wants to give you more strength and more endurance. So whatever it is that you're going through, be patient, trust Allah, put your affairs in Allah's hands, and push through it. because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a better thing planned for you. Please stay tuned and follow Shaded for more life lessons from Surah Yusuf alayhi salam. Jazakumullah kul khair. And thank you for your time. And I hope that you have a blessed day.